some things we can talk about. Come to the show. We about to chop it up. Come to the show. We got some things we can talk about. Chop it up. Chop it, chop it, chop it, chop it up. Chop it. We got some things we can talk about. Chop it up. Chop it, chop it, chop it up. Chop it up. Chop it. We got some things we can talk about.
You are now tuned in to the Chop Shop with your host, Pastor Marvin McKenstry Jr. Let's chop it up.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Chop Shop. As stated, I'm your host, Pastor Marvin. I'm excited that we get to come to you every week and talk about the things that really matter to Baltimore, my Baltimore city I love. As our disclaimer, y'all, we have barbershop-style conversation. We don't claim to be experts on anything. This is the way you would hear it discussed everywhere from the barbershop to the church fellowship hall to the stoop in front of the house, just chopping it up and kicking the bobo, y'all. So make sure you come on in, like, love, and share this broadcast. Get as many people on here as you possibly can, because tonight we going to have a banger. Before we do anything else, I got to bring on my right hand and my left hand, my main man, Mr. Shaka Pitts, on the ones and twos, making the magic happen. Techniques 1200, because anything else is uncivilized. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's good, brother? This a long, short week, ain't it?
It absolutely is. Yeah, normally we have a day off. The rest of the week fly by, boy, but we just at Thursday. I'm like, my God. Yeah. Yes, sir.
That's real in the field.
Absolutely. And we got to bring on the first lady of the show herself, the one and only Miss Hot Topic, Lady Lisha. Welcome back to the stage. How you doing?
Oh, good. I'm good. Oh, there I go. I'm good. You know me, I'm chilling.
That's what's up. And as always, we got to bring on the foundation, the one and only kept woman herself, Chelsea, the kept woman. Chelsea, thank you for being with us tonight. Chelsea, we feel privileged whenever you can join us, because your itinerary don't allow you to be with us every week.
Listen, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I'm excited tonight about tonight's show, because we got a co-pilot with us tonight. That while we're going to be talking about some things that we have been talking about over the last few weeks, if you know anything about this brother, you know the conversation is not going to be the same. And to be able to have his voice back, he's a consummate contributor to the show, has been that from day one, even has a national platform, but continues to come to act. Before I announce who our special guest is, let's get to these church announcements. As always, we start off with the Stop the Beef hotline, because we know that we have got to prioritize giving our young men the opportunity to live. So the Men of the We Are Us movement have gotten together, and you can call this number 443-431-3705 or 443-522-7848. You are looking at the very brand new workforce development director for the We Are Us men's movement as well. Yay, me. All right, because we taking this thing to a next level, but stopping the beef is a priority. When you call that number, a man is going to answer. There's no police involvement, and we're going to come in and do whatever is necessary to make sure life is preserved. Walking hand in hand with the Stop the Beef hotline, as always, is the Baltimore Peace Agreement, the 10-point plan that was put together by OGs, young Gs, brothers behind the walls, brothers that used to be intellectuals. We got together, and we had to put this 10-point plan together that says essentially, even if you got to eat in the street, you ain't got to die killing the street. We have literally been seeing the brothers, as we rolled this out over the last 3 or 4 years, that have signed off, keeping their word. So if it has not come to your neighborhood, make sure we bring it to a neighborhood near you. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. hosting the Mayor's Office of Employment Development's own Employee Baltimore show. We bring up to the minute employment information from the freshest voices that you can find, those who are the decision makers in these agencies and organizations. So make sure you tune in at 2 p.m. on Thursdays, because if you're looking for an opportunity, the Mayor's Office of Employment Development is looking for you. Join us every Sunday, Victory House Worship Center, y'all. Listen, it is great to be in a place where we can reverence and we can recognize God's greatness and his glory. We are praying for the peace of Jerusalem, for the word of God says they shall prosper that love thee. Had to get that in there, but make sure you come down and be a part of the collective worship experience. Yes, we do have Facebook Live. We do it on Zoom, but there's nothing like being in the building. So come on in on Sunday. We're making sure that everybody is safe, but the glory of God shall be revealed to you when you come into place. The Victory Now podcast, y'all. I've been hyping it up and pumping it up, y'all. We are going to bring the voices of local and national pastors to you through the Victory Now podcast. We're working out some things to make sure you can get it all on all of your podcast platforms, but you know me, it's still going to come to you on Facebook and in a visual format. So it'll be audio and visual, y'all. Make sure you are lining your pastor up and letting him know that we want to hear his or her voice on the Victory Now podcast. Coming soon, more details to come. That's my brother. That's my brother and my sister. Every second Friday of the month at 7:30 p.m. Prayer and praise at Overcomers Ministries. I'm so excited about this man of God. He's one of the realest brothers I know, and he brings that passion to Christ. Him and his beautiful wife, my sister Tiffany. Y'all make sure that y'all are sliding through. It's no preaching, but it's prayer and praise, y'all, and it is definitely a move of God. Shout out to Overcomers Ministry and to my brother and my sister, Pastor Lady Nance. This Friday, make sure you in the building. My son, who's doing great work over in the East Baltimore community, has we're gonna be having a service, and yes, we are being unapologetic. We are raising money for the building fund. This ain't one of them building funds where the building never get built. This is one of those building funds because we're in a position where this thing can be paid off, y'all. So come on through. We don't want you to just send a donation. We want you to be in the building. It's going to be at 1063 West Fair Street in the Lord Sanctuary Victory House Worship Center, but it's going to be New Commandment Church's service, and yours truly, Pastor Marvin McKenstry, going to be bringing the word of encouragement, y'all. So make sure y'all come on in the building and support. Emily's Sweet Treats. That's right. One of my favorite dessertiers. Amen. Hallelujah. I think I got it right this week. Dessertiers is the wonderful one and only Deacon Rhonda Batten, y'all. She is amazing at what she does, not just in flavor and taste, but even in her presentation. She does everything in excellence. She's looking to come and vend at your event. She's looking to cater your event. You see all of the ways that you can reach her. Look for the flyer on our Facebook page because Rhonda is doing some great stuff and it will bless your events. All right. We got a screen change. I guess that means we are ready to get to what we came here to do, y'all. I teased it a little bit. I'm not going to tease it more, but you have seen this brother all over the place in national media as a contributor on such shows as Roland Martin, Unplugged, and so many different other platforms. And we are blessed every time he comes and lends his voice to ours, y'all. Make sure you like, love, and share. Tag people in the comments as we welcome to the Chop Shop under our new format. This is the first time since we changed. The one and only director of policy, and he'll tell you what the rest of it is. Brother Dayvon Love is back with us tonight. Dayvon, what's up, man?
I'm good, man. How y'all doing?
Oh, half of Dayvon Love is with us. You see that shot? Oh, I seen the brother in the bar. I said, man, I need to know what the plan is.
Yeah.
Man, it's so good to see you, man.
Yeah, likewise.
We trying our best to be health conscious, over here, and Shaq keep beating the crap out of anything that want to come near him, man. I salute you, man. I need that discipline to get me right too. But welcome back to the Chop Shop, man. You've been here since day one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Always a pleasure, bro.
So, man, we're going to unpack some stuff that we've been talking about over time. And like I said, the show is in a more conversational format, but I do want to make sure that we are lending to your voice and your ability to add unique perspective and concept. And Dr. Rasheen, we got to get you on here too. Sis, I love your work and love what you bring to the table. But the unique perspective, I called you earlier this week because you my go-to guy. You my guy that I check in with about certain things. And I do want to start it off. It may seem a little out of order, but I want to start it off with talking about the juvenile crime situation because you gave me a whole nother perspective and a way to look at it. As we've seen, there's been an allegiance forming between states attorneys, other law enforcement agencies across the state, pretty much with the battle cry that we can't do anything to hold these young people accountable based on this crime bill. And I wanted to talk to you about it because although I pay attention, brother, you dissect this stuff and you understand layers of it that I can't get to. So I want to go right to you so that you can kind of give us some insight and share some of what you shared with me in the sense of your perspective around these matters of the juvenile crime bill.
Yeah, so I mean, a few things. I really appreciate even this shift in format because what I want to do is I want to get a sense of what it is that the larger community is hearing versus what the truth is and how to get the truth to penetrate to so people can really understand what's really going on. And the big picture is this. One of the impacts of the system of racism and white supremacy of this society is that there are notions of Black inferiority and inherent Black pathology that are so deeply ingrained in our consciousness that it impacts our ability to understand how we're interacting with the larger society. And as it relates to the issue of juvenile, crime, like it's important for people to note that homicides are down from a year ago, non-fatal shootings are down from a year ago. You mentioned the work that you do, Brother Marvin, We Are Us, right? And the work that they've done, the kind of the laser focus in the Western District. And there's been historic declines in the Western District in terms of violent crime and homicide as a result of community-based violence prevention efforts that are truly grassroots, right? That conversation is not going to hit Fox 45. Fox 45 is a part of a propaganda machine. And a part of what it's doing is that it is obscuring people's ability to truly understand what's going on in front of them. Now, this isn't to say, so now crime is something that is an issue. It's an issue in any urban city around the country, right? And even during the pandemic, we've seen at its zenith, right, the rates that crime and violence rose around the United States, not just in Baltimore, but around the country, right? And what has happened is, what happened simultaneously was major criminal justice reform measures, right? Because we all know about mass incarceration and the negative impact that has had on our community, right? So you saw the repeal of Law Enforcement Officer Bill of Rights, Anton's Law around Maryland Public Information Act, the Child Interrogation Protection Act, marijuana legalization, all these things that are going in the opposite direction of prosecutors and law enforcement who are used to having unfettered power in the legislature and the political halls of power. What was also happening simultaneously is the work of folks like We Are Us and other violence prevention groups who understood that if you're going to deal with public safety, it can't be a police-centric approach, right? The community has to be the central element of it. What Fox 45 has been doing is they have been making, and what law enforcement has been aiding them in doing, is they have been reporting on violence in Baltimore in ways that have magnified the actual conditions that are on the ground, right? Because youth crime is actually down from during the pandemic, right? But what happens is, and what they've been saying is, the Child Interrogation Protection Act is saying that police can't talk to law enforcement, and that's simply not true. Right? Law enforcement can talk to young people. There's even what's called a public safety exception in the law. So that if law enforcement feels that there's an imminent public safety threat, then they can bypass the law, right? The Youth Reform Council piece around not prosecuting 13-year-olds younger than 13 for nonviolent offenses. There's still ways to hold them accountable. They're called SINS petitions, Child in Need of Services. Now, when you talk to police officers, it's not that some of them don't know about SINS, and then the rest of them don't know how to do it, because all they're conditioned to do is refer them to corrections, right? So the point that I'm making is that what we're seeing from Fox 45 and their propaganda is that law enforcement is losing because community-based violence prevention is working. Criminal justice reform is advancing beyond what they like it to be, right? And so in that world, law enforcement is less central, right? And so for a lot of them, it is the very profession as it has been existing that is at stake. It's not about, they don't care about our communities being safer or not. They care about the public, they care about law enforcement and the institution of law enforcement maintaining its power, the power that community has wrestled away from them. Right, and rightly wrestled away from them. That is what is happening currently. And if we're, and again, the last thing I'll say in terms of just the kind of introduction, that if the community-based violence prevention is working, right, then the issue should be, how do we build on that success? Any solution that we want to come to address youth crime, the approach should be, how do we build on that success? But what Fox 45 is telling you is that these laws are making it so that they can't do their job, and it's just simply not true.
So we talking about the $500 million budget of local law enforcement here in Baltimore being redirected into community-based policing unless they can sensationalize crime. Is that what we're looking at the overall outcome? Because I don't even know if I caught that plug when we talked about it on the phone the other day. But now that I'm hearing what you're saying, we're threatening because it all comes back to money. So we threatening, as we talked about, we heard defund the police a few years ago, and we were never literally saying defund the police. We were saying redirect the funding. Is this what you actually telling us, that if we get to the point where we don't allow Fox 45 or other entities to sensationalize crime, the focus goes on community-based policing, and more of the funding towards fixing what's broken begins to come out of traditional law enforcement and goes into those spaces? I want our audience to have it clear.
Exactly. And that's why Fox 45 spent so much time attacking Safe Streets and attacking Monty. That's why they spend so much time attacking that. Now, that's not to say there aren't legitimate criticisms of Safe Streets and Monty, but their insistent focus on it is out of proportion given all the other range of things that they could be reporting on. Right?
So this is the part of it that I don't get, Dayvon. I hear what we're saying and the budget shift and how that can really, why law enforcement proponents would come out in defense of that, whether you're a law enforcement agency or officer or whoever. But why would a news media outlet be so hell-bent on bury it? What incentive is it for Fox and Sinclair?
Great question. So the Smith family, David Smith, they're headquartered in Cockeysville, Baltimore County, right? One of the biggest media conglomerates in the country. They are right-wing conservatives. Their allegiance is to like right-wing Republican establishment. Also, Alex Smith, right? Son of David Smith. Alex Smith, who owns all the Atlas stuff, right? They have an interest in Baltimore being whiter because they can attract more business, right? There's real estate involved. So, and a part of, I heard people say to me, I'm sure you remember during the Squeegee Collaborative stuff, right? And I had people say to me, part of their concern about the squeegee, well, but the brothers that was squeegeing, wasn't so much about like them wanting to help the brothers on the corner. It was unattractive to their business partners in other places in the country.
Yeah, they were deliberate about that.
Corner,
they were deliberate about that. Like there was you were in those rooms with me, Dayvon. You were unapologetic. They were unapologetic about saying what the aesthetic was doing to their building. I do want to get some of our panel, and Shaka, I want to come to you first, hearing some of the insights and how they literally align and agree with many of the things that you were saying in the big picture as it pertains to this. I want to really get your feedback based on some of what Dayvon shared.
Well, my feedback is really two questions, or a question and a half. So one is I want to agree with him on the lack of knowledge or the lack of education within the system, right? Because even in Joe Baltimore, our director, right, he would have to go down to the court. He would have to go to court to try to get kids in our program. Like, hey, you don't have to lock them up. We have this program, you know, if you can send them to us, then boom, boom, boom. But he had to go there and sit in court every day and try to intercept a kid going to bookings, right? So again, he couldn't sit in his office on Lafayette and wait for them to just keep sending kids, because that's not what they were doing. They were sending them downtown. So I'm co-signing that fact that is 1,000,000,000% correct. So again, and I don't know if some of that is just not knowledge or some of it is intentional. I don't know, but that happens 1,000,000,000%. The other part, I guess, is a question, Dayvon. So we know what Fox is about. We've always known I think we've always known for a while, because it was the same thing. Okay, why they keep? Okay, there's something to say about this sister, but damn, they always on this sister. Okay, that brother got some issues, but damn, they always on this brother. So that was known. So are there any outlets that can amplify or magnify and evangelize the thing that you're saying now, the truth that you have? And are there any friendly, again, I don't do any of the media at all. But is 13 available? Is 2 available? Are there other channels that you can go and say, hey, look, what's being said over there is cat. This is what's really going on. Is that possible?
No, that's a good question. I'll answer it 2 ways. The first way I'll answer it is that, corporate media still, even though social media has really decentralized the media landscape, corporate media still, particularly when it comes to local news, dominates where people get their information from, right? And Fox News being so prominent, right, they are driving the talking points that I think the average person hears about what's going on. So even on other platforms, like a very friendly platform I go on all the time, WEAA 88.9, right? Very friendly platform. They bring myself and many others on to talk from this perspective. But even EAA, some of the callers and some of the guests are folks that are taking those same talking points, right? So I think a part of for me in raising this here is to kind of raise the urgency of intentionally pushing back against Fox 45 as an institution, because they don't need just drive their stuff, like BAL radio. They're driving the stuff on BAL radio, and it's seeping into other platforms. I saw something on WJZ the other day, right? Where, again, taking some of the same talking points. So I think like intentionality around naming that institution and its propagandizing, and it's important so that when people hear it, people at least have that thought of, oh, wait, that's the propaganda. Let me check against it. So I think that's one piece because it's impacting other platforms. The other thing I would say is the level of intentionality around this propaganda campaign is tremendous. And I'll give you an example. There was Goucher they have a poll that they do. It's very popular, right? And so some of the questions that the poll asked were, again, informed by some of this propaganda. One of the questions they asked was, do you believe that in dealing with youth that we should have more leniency, or should there be more accountability? And what the poll found is that white people, 62% of white people said that young people, there should be more leniency, and that 62% of Black people said there should be more accountability. Now, the problem with that framing, that's the wrong framing for that question. Because it's not like those of us that want young people to have alternatives to incarceration, that don't mean we don't want them held accountable, right? That just means that we want to exhaust all other options before we go to look at that prison, right? But even the way the question is framed, and let me tell you how deep it is. It's so deep that I had a meeting with a state senator last week who, in his conversation with me, used that poll. And me getting a sense of what's going to happen during. He said, he was like, well, Dayvon, you saw the poll. The poll said, Black Democrats, 62% say that they're not for, criminal justice reform, right? So it's like, it's a level of sophistication and intentionality on the other side around media and propaganda, and that there aren't enough spaces to decode it so that people can recognize the propaganda. So I think while there are other, again, to your question, while there are other friendly platforms, I think it's really going to take people in their spheres of influence to call it out and be intentional so people can recognize it. Because unless you can decode it, it's just easy to think, oh, they just, people just talking on the media.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000% because you're not hearing this. But Dayvon, I do want to give you this question before we throw it to Lady Lisha and Chelsea, the Catwoman. What do you say to the person who is hearing what you're saying and saying that, okay, youth crime is down, all of these things that you're saying is true, but we've never heard so much about young people being murdered and committing murder than we have in 2023? What is the redress? Because there's always that person that's going to kind of defer to what we know is a fact. And I'm a person that sees that, man, this is an incredible amount of young people who are dying and being killed. I mean, who are dying and who are killing like we've never seen it before. And they say stuff to you like, well, Fox ain't make that up.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So a couple things. One is that one piece of data that has come out that confirms what you just said is that young people are more likely to be the victims of homicide than in previous years, right? So that is true. What that speaks to is that, and so for me, the question that needs to be asked and answered is, well, why is that the case? Like, what is happening?
Mm-hmm.
And a part of the answer to that is that young people feel less safe. So more of them have firearms than ever before. I mean, there are lots of guns everywhere. Like there are more guns than ever before. Young people are more prone to carry firearms than ever before. So it's creating a circumstance where more young people are going to be victimized by gun violence and be in situations, right, where they could be perpetrators.
Because the
right?
propaganda machine is pushing the idea that you're not safe.
That you're not
Man, it's
safe.
crazy how connected all this stuff is, man.
And one other thing too, it's important for people, like when you talk to the people that work in DJS, what they will tell you is that the young people they work with, they're dealing with kids who, and again, these is like your typical social work types. Like these ain't people that's like outside or formally in the life. They're saying that what they're saying is that these kids that carry guns, it's not even like the tough ones that's like the, you know what I'm saying? But they just feel like they gotta have one.
Well, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I'm gonna come right to you, Lady Lisha, after this comment. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was telling them that I know 3 young men that are not in the drug game, they not in gangs, they not in the streets. All of them felt as though they needed protection. Maryland's stringent gun laws was not the route that they felt as though that they could go. And all 3 of them have been arrested and charged with gun crimes, thus damaging their future. And the real reason why, and I know from intimate contact that the real reason that these 3 young men had those firearms is because they felt as though in a city like Baltimore, you got to have protection. Lady Lisha, I want to come to you. Anything, you go ahead and give redress on anything that you've heard from Dayvon today and just how it kind of falls and lands with the conversation that we've been having here, and specifically the thing that you continue to hear while you're looking at these media outlets.
I'm just sitting here taking notes because I feel like he's confirming a lot of the theories that I've been sliding in debates here and there. Fox News has been running propaganda forever. Like this isn't new, right? They've been shaping and guiding the direction of the political powers forever. So I'm not surprised to hear that. I am surprised and actually excited to hear about stuff like sins, because we've been talking about the fact that there hasn't been a place to bridge the gap between accountability and incarceration. And the fact that these resources aren't being used is kind of like, okay, but there's a reason why, right? Because, the population of Black prisoners is going down. So there's money behind that as well. So I'm just back here taking notes. Like I literally got my phone out, just like typing in notes while he's talking, because this is like, I'm about this going in my paper this weekend. Like just some real good stuff.
Chelsea, the Catwoman, let's talk to you. You hearing some of the things that Dayvon are talking about and balancing them against a lot of what is being spoken out in the media and things of that nature, and stuff that you might just hear in the general conversation. Just give us your feedback towards a lot of what Brother Dayvon has said already before we shift.
I'm actually taking notes as well. I'm just not using the phone. I'm using a notepad, right? But I'm just concerned. My question is, so how did Fox get so much power? You understand what I'm saying to you? Like, what made them it to move this like that? You understand what I'm saying? So it in turn has caused me to question, like, who is the motivator behind this as far as why Fox? It makes sense to me going to the prison. I was just in the women's prison on Sunday, so it makes sense to me. But the women's prison, I see there are younger people in there. You understand? They're younger. They're a lot younger. So the older ones are out, a lot of them, but the younger ones are discouraged. They're hopeless. They don't have a lot of hope. So my question is, again, I don't watch Fox, and probably back when I was at City Hall, why I stopped watching it, but that's a whole nother. But I don't why do they have so much power? How did they get this much power to move? So who's the money that's backing them to cause them to be, you understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Cause these dots to connect the way that they are. So
We
there's
record
an
this, right?
underlying
We record
fund.
it.
There's an underlying fund. You understand what I'm talking about? That's a
Mhm.
constant stream. So that's my question.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
recorded, so I can go back and take more notes when we go back because you're dropping some real good
But
stuff.
Dayvon, I do want
Yes,
I
ma'am.
want you to answer that specifically.
Yeah.
That question about why Fox.
Yeah. So I would say there are three parts to the answer to that question. The first is I just think there is a sense of general hopelessness in our community that they are tapping into. Like they tapped into that, like, ain't nobody doing nothing. Things never gonna change. We never gonna rise up as, like, they're taking advantage of that feeling, that cynicism, that hopelessness in our community. And it's a very powerful tool. Like the way that they present the examples of stories of, like, real stories of brutality and all that, like they present that stuff and take advantage of people's. So even a person who has a little bit of media savvy, it's compelling, right? And they're good at that. So that's one piece. The second piece is that the law enforcement establishment, and I'm using that phrase because I think a lot of times we think just the police, and even if we're more sophisticated, we may think of like the FOP. But you got to include like the networks of attorneys, particularly the networks of prosecutors. There's this dude named Scott Schellenberger, who's the state's attorney of Baltimore County.
Baltimore County.
He is basically he is the intellectual architect of the law enforcement establishment on the other side, right? And now what I respect about Schellenberger is that he says his stuff.
Yeah.
Like he said on record, he'll say, I don't believe there are racial disparities in policing. Like he'll just say that, right? He's not some of these other liberals that like are squishy and trying to walk a line. Like he'll say it directly. But he is the architect in terms of that other side. And they have, for them in terms of how they make careers, right? Both the power of their network. There was a time where Scott Schellenberger had unfettered power in Annapolis. Like in either House or the Senate, he was the person who decided what left the committee and what did not. And some of the stuff that I mentioned, cannabis legalization, repeal of Law Enforcement Officer Bill of Rights, Youth Interrogation Protection Act. We moved a bill last session and, partnership with other orgs to prohibit law enforcement from the sole use of the smell of cannabis as a basis for a stop and search. That was right. That was the last bill that passed 11:53 at night, last day of session. And the Republicans protested on the floor against the speaker for moving that bill that way. Right. And so it's important to note that the prosecutors have a political interest because from their perspective, all this criminal justice reform is making their jobs harder, right? It's making it harder for them to get there, lock them up, throw away the key, because that's how they get elected. Like that's how Schellenberger gets elected. That's how these prosecutors in other places, how they get elected. So that's just, and then the third piece in terms of the answer, in terms of the money, as I mentioned before, Sinclair Broadcasting, look at all the stuff that they've gotten involved in. Term limits, right, for elected officials. That was them, right? The piece around, now they want to shrink the council, right, from 15 to 8 members, right? They have an agenda in terms of wanting to control the politics of the city. And they want to control it because Baltimore is such a perfect place if you want to get in early and cheap and make money. We got the harbor, we're close to DC, close to Philly and New York City, still relatively cheap compared to those other places. The surrounding suburbs are good real estate, right? So if you're Sinclair Broadcasting and you do business, these are multi-billion-dollar people, right? So for them, like if Baltimore continues to be what it is, it gets in the way of them making money, the kind of money they want to make. And they're not interested in making Black people's communities better. They're interested in us getting out of here, right? So they have an interest, and they have, and I'll say this, they've always been around, but I would argue that over the past 2 or 3 years, they pushed turbo. And they pushed turbo because, as I mentioned, the weakening power that their allies in law enforcement had in the legislature, their power is diminished. So the past few years, they pushed turbo, right?
Let me ask you this, Dayvon, because we kind of shifting the conversation in that direction anyway. We know we have an election coming up. And we also have session right on the other side of the new year. So 2024 is going to be hot. We're going to be looking at session, and then we're going to be looking at coming down, pretty much the runway to another local and national election. I want to kind of go to session first because there have been outcries for a special session to adjust the juvenile justice bill that we have in place now. And I think that that's just not going to happen. What are some of the things that you expect to see being pushed in this upcoming legislative session concerning the juvenile crime and things that we see? And what do you think the response will be from the Democratic majority in the legislature?
So there are conversations about repealing the Child Interrogation Protection Act, right? I've had several conversations where some people are saying they're looking at repealing it. Some people are saying they want to make tweaks to it to clarify it. And then some folks are saying that it should be outright repealed. It's really important for, your guests and listeners to be clear that the Child Interrogation Protection Act, the importance of it is that, like, I think the number is like 90% of young people that are engaged without access to an attorney or a parent notified waive their rights, right? And law enforcement, according to Supreme Court case law, it is legal for them to lie. It is legal for law enforcement to lie, right? So if you think about the position that puts young people in, right, where a lot of young people are making false confessions, combine that with the incompetence and corruption of law enforcement, right? So now law enforcement will do anything it takes to get a conviction, right? And so when you think about, the situation that puts our young people in, it puts them in a very vulnerable situation. So it's extremely important to preserve and leave untouched the Child Interrogation Protection Act. Now, there are some tweaks to the Juvenile Reform Council legislation around not prosecuting for nonviolent crimes, young people under 13. And one of the tweaks that has been talked about that I think may be a good tweak is maybe mandatory SINs petition. So essentially mandating that law enforcement, when they encounter a young person in a nonviolent offense, that they have to make a referral. Because again, currently what's happening is they're just like, I can't lock them up, so I'm not gonna do anything, right? And so that's one tweak that actually makes sense. So those are the things. And then I think the other piece is that I think the impact of the conversation around youth violence, it puts in jeopardy the ability to move other policies that are related to anything public safety. So for instance, one of the policies that there was an attempt to move and had been in the works for 15 years is stopping the automatic charging of youth as adults, right? And that's extremely important because the argument is all young people should start in the juvenile system. And if they need to be in the adult system, a petition can be filed and they can get waived up. A part of why this is so important is because I think the number is about 60 or 70% of the young people that start in adult court get waived down to juvenile anyway. So what you have is a bunch of young people who are starting in the adult system being impacted by being in an adult prison context who ultimately going to get waived down anyway. Right. And so I think and that bill, which had some movement last year but didn't make it through, that I'm in conversations with legislators who say that's a no-go this session because of all of the propaganda, right? That's a no-go in terms of moving that piece of legislation. You know what I mean? So in terms of like youth justice, I would say that those are kind of the central things that are coming up this session.
So again, moving into the coming local election, there's that striking balance between real reductions in crime that cannot be argued or ignored, versus what appears to be an elevation in youth crime and what the propaganda machine and all of that is doing. And we seem like we're lining up for round 2 of pretty much Sheila Dixon versus Brandon Scott. Um, I love the fact that you are unapologetically a person that speaks truth to power without public endorsement. I'm the same way. But if you had an audience with thousands of voters right now, what are some of the things that we should be looking for? And what do you see coming as it pertains to this rolling out and having some level of impact in this coming election?
So a couple things. One general thing that I just make it a point to say all the time. Eventually, Black people, we're going to need to build independent, Black, community-led electoral infrastructure that we control. Because it's important to note that the elected officials, even those who are our friends, even those that we like, and I'm at a point now where there are a lot of people in elected office who I've known for a long time, some I'm cool with, some are friends, but they don't work for us because we aren't the ones that put them there. They're navigating
Can I ask you a
elements.
question though before you go into the details? Do we need to build this, or do we need to have the places where Black people are already exerting influence in our own community make it a priority? Do we need this in the Black church? Do we need this in the neighborhood community association? Do we need more of our Black quote unquote activist community to make this in a more of a priority, or do we really need to build something separate and apart?
I mean, I would say a combination of both. I would say it definitely needs to be a priority. There's certain elements of the machine that we need, like for instance, we need like the ADL, right? The Anti-Defamation League. They are the propaganda arm, advocacy arm for Jewish people, and their sole job is to do that, right? We as a community, we need a well-funded ADL that does that for us, right? As one, so there are aspects of the ecosystem that do need to be built, but to your point, combined with existing infrastructure. Right?
Anybody focusing on a driving at work?
I mean, we're looking to try to build up our capacity to be more involved electorally. It's one of those things that costs money and got to be built. It's a long-term project. You get what I'm saying? But it's one of those things that I guess the only thing I'll say about that though is that's some of like the mundane day-to-day stuff that's not as sexy. Like a lot of people that get into activism or advocacy, they want to do the speeches and go down and do the dramatic marches and stuff, which is there's a time and place for that. But in terms of the day-to-day, like who's going to have the list of the van file? If anyone who's run for public office, that van file, you know what I'm saying, that has all the voters who voted in the last 3 elections and all that. And so that infrastructure is stuff that we need to bring to bear. So I would say to people generally, a lot of the people in elected office, 90% of them didn't get there because we put them there. They got there because they was able to navigate the corporate and political sector in such a way to position themselves to be there. And so to the extent that any of them going to do what I need them to do, we're going to have to make them do it. And we're going to have to make it painful for them not to do the things we need them to do. Right. And that's so I would say that generally. In terms of, Sheila Dixon and Brandon Scott, I think part of what I wrestle with is that I think there are things about the way that the conversation around the potential rematch with them, there's a way that it gets framed that concerns me in terms of what people are paying attention to. So for instance, I talk to a lot of older folks, right, who don't respect Brandon, right? And, they have their reasons, right? For me, part of the question that I would ask is, okay, what are some of the concrete policy deliverables that you're looking for, right? And what has he done on those issues? I will argue that for stuff that like is important to me and to LBS, the record is mixed there, right? There's some things that, I wrote a thing very publicly a few years ago around his stuff around police accountability and community oversight that I was disappointed with his office with, right? But I was, glad that he signed over the work that we did, the reparation stuff. He signed the bill, right? So in that way, it's certainly mixed. I would say my biggest concern around Sheila Dixon, and I don't know her well. Like I've met her maybe once or twice, like in terms of a conversation. But the thing that I am most concerned about is the proximity to Fox 45, right? And my question would be, and if she was here, like part of my question to her would be, like, how much influence are they going to have if you become mayor again and it's your administration? You know what I'm saying? Because I can like all the other aspects of what she may be as a mayor, but if they are people who have a role in her administration, then that for me that negates everything else.
I
You
want
know
to
what I
open
mean?
up to my co-pilots in case they have anything to add or share or contribute to this conversation. Guys, y'all jump right on in if there's anything while we're on this particular conversation about the upcoming election, because we do have one more phase of dialogue that I definitely want to make sure that we get in. And while we're talking, we're going to need love offering, because we ain't going to keep giving Miss Pulley all this free airtime with your comments, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody on the team, anybody want to jump in?
I told you, I'm still taking notes when it comes to a lot of the stuff with the politics. I just moved to Baltimore. So I'm trying to figure this out.
I agree with what Dayvon said. I can see where both of them have done things, but my heart still goes towards Sheila. So she, and I also agree that if there was someone that we, for the lack of a better word, that we could get behind, right? That is not blemished and still have the heart for the people, because she has a heart for the people, right? And that's what my heart is drawn to, because she has a heart for the people. She is Baltimore born, bred, and I was there with her. She roll her sleeves up and get it done regardless. But it's the political thing, like you said, what's the yeah, that it's just tough. That's a tough one. Yeah.
Okay, so I do have a question. I do have a question though, from the perspective of I'm new. I'm just now, getting into Baltimore City information, right? If all of this stuff is behind the scenes, like I never would have. I've read through some of Sheila's position, but I never saw the connection to Fox News. How are we supposed to know this stuff?
Yeah, how would we? Right.
Well, I mean, it's been pretty public. She's done a bunch of town halls with them. She's like one of the people that she interviewed with on Fox 45 was a guy named Armstrong Williams. And if folks aren't familiar with Armstrong Williams, he's a very prominent, longtime Black conservative media commentator who I find to be pretty stupid, and he's a proponent of some of the most idiotic, like right wing, propaganda. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, and I'm saying stupid advisedly because it's like I've seen him post stuff that was just wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like post stuff about like stuff that's happening in Maryland is just wrong. But what I'm clear about is that him interviewing her on Fox 45 is an attempt on Fox 45's part to endear her to their listeners.
Okay.
But
let me ask you this though, because what media opportunity when you running for public office are you turning down?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a thin line there, and I want to get to Shaq, because Shaq, before we give our follow-up questions or anything, Shaq had something he wanted to say, but that is because for me, right, we've had her several times on the Chop Shop, and the thing that sticks out to me is she'll come, and there's others that won't even return the phone call.
Yeah. Right. And quickly to your point, and I'm saying that to say that my question to her, my question to her would be,
I get what you're saying.
What role would they have? You get what I'm saying? Because I'm concerned about that. If the answer is what you saying, I could consider that. You get what I mean? But I would need more a substantive answer as to like how are they gonna give you all that airtime and they're not gonna expect nothing in return. Like that's my question, right? and I would want to hear the answer.
Shaka, let's come on and get to you, brother. I want to make sure that we get your voice in here.
Sure. So initially I had a question. It was, and I have. Well, let me go back to this one. No, I'll just go with the question. How was Fox 45 on her coattails on her other on the last administration, like before this, or they on her because it's a way to go against Brandon?
Oh yeah.
That's
So
what it
that,
is.
so is that's what it is. This is new.
Yeah.
This is new. This is new. Okay. All right. So that makes it okay. So that's cool. So the other thing is, I'm not concerned about her going on that platform. To be honest, I would be. I mean, I would be concerned on why do they want her on as much as they do. Not so much as why she going on there, because I mean, I'm gonna go on there too. But they can, and be all up under the conservatives saying what I gotta say, right? So I'm not mad at that, but I would be leery of, okay, why y'all, again, Marv, you know me, the why you doing this? Okay, that's cool, but why you doing this? And I think what's coming out in the wash is because they're anti-branded, and so
And the truth
and
is,
me and my friend
that
type situation, right?
yeah,
So
that makes sense because I personally don't think that she needs Sinclair Broadcasting because her name is enough to run a less funded campaign and still be out there. We're not talking about somebody who needs the media machine to elevate them. And I think all of those things have to be in the conversation. I love the way Dayvon framed it, that if I had an audience with her, I would ask the question. My personal take, and y'all know me, I always put the disclaimer, I don't endorse politicians. If it's equal opportunity, if it's opportunity for them to go against the guy that they don't want to win, and it's opportunity for us to get her to get some free airtime, fair exchange ain't no robbery. I ain't mad at nobody. But when it comes down to
I would still ask that question though.
yeah, absolutely. And we'll get the opportunity because she come on anytime we call.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? She shows up for us. But let's go ahead and shift to this last
Yeah.
thing while we got a little bit of time left. I want to talk about the new police commissioner because I'm excited to hear your perspective. And I want to frame the question in something really simple. Since he has become the interim, we've had three major situations. We're not talking about anything minor. We're talking about major situations. And in each situation, we've had some form of a gaffe on his behalf. We've had Brooklyn Homes, where it seems like communication and things of that nature that just did not involve him for something that was so serious. We had the situation with the couple that was handcuffed or bound and gagged and throats cut, and the lack of communication to our community about that crime. Then he goes on in the media and he infers that they did something that could have warranted or aligned them to be assaulted. And then we know a week later, there was the completely opposite response when the young lady was killed in downtown Baltimore. And the last thing and most recent thing has been this Morgan State University shooting situation and how they soft walk the conversation around potential suspects and things of that nature. Are these just transitional blunders, or is this a forecast? Are you familiar with now Commissioner Worley and his work or anything? Is this kind of the safe move for Brandon Scott because of all that time they spent in the same councilmatic district? Talk to me about this particular appointment here.
Yeah, I think this appointment may represent maybe one of the worst cases of judgment for the administration.
Wow, and there's been a bunch.
And the reason I say that is because, even though, we LBS, we work on police accountability, we go at the FOP, like we unapologetic about that. There are some Black police officers or former police officers that we have relationships with. And one of the things that they will say is that, from what I hear, is that a lot of the Black officers that really had a relationship with the community are folks for whom never have been put in position to really take leadership in the department. And in fact, some of them, because of their close proximity to community, will get characterized as being in gangs, in cahoots with, the criminals, right? So it tells you a lot about like how ineffective and incompetent the police have been, right? When you got people that can really bridge the gap and build those relationships who don't have the opportunity to ascend to the level of a commissioner in the way that Worley has. Now, I don't know him well. I don't know much about him. The only things I know about him are the things I hear informally from former police officers. What I know is that Worley is connected to a network of folks that are O'Malley holdovers, right? And many of them are folks who have been in control of the police department and never get blamed for the level of incompetence.
Yeah, it never
right?
goes beyond the local
Right.
commander.
Exactly. And so I would say what it shows, it's another example of how, like, when I talk about racism and white supremacy, usually people hear us talk about it in terms of like mass incarceration or police brutality. But the other side of it is the lack of regard that people have for the humanity of Black people in the form of like folks for whom the police department is a career stepping stone, right? These ain't people that's invested in the community in the way that they're part of the social fabric, right? And they don't care enough because it's not their people. They don't care enough to prioritize like actually going after the people that are the drivers of violence and connecting to the community who, if they were properly engaged, would collaborate with law enforcement to be able to do the job. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's part of the challenge that I think Worley's appointment demonstrates, which is that same law enforcement establishment, like that is what he is. And I'm not surprised. Unfortunately, again, those are folks that have had control of the police department for a while.
So why is that the pick for a guy who has kind of made it public that he wants to go a different route as it pertains to the long-term effects of policing? Why? And then there seemed to be a little bit of haste in the decision-making for our current mayor about this. There was no national search. There was nothing. There's Michael Harrison is leaving. Here's Worley. This is what we're doing. How do you think that impacts the upcoming election?
I mean, I think it's going to hurt him. I think it's going to hurt Brandon. And I mean, to your question, like, why? I don't know. I think I don't know. To me, I mean, again, I mentioned earlier, we were working on some police accountability stuff that was Baltimore City specific, and his office opposed the stuff he was doing around strengthening community oversight. And I was surprised. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. I think it was a bad choice. And he politically, he's likely to have to pay for it.
Y'all, we got to wrap this puppy up. I want to thank Dayvon Love for being with us tonight. Dayvon, I'm reaching out to you again because we get ready to enter that season for session. We get ready to enter the election, and we got to have your voice, man. Listen, you unpack things on a level that makes me feel like I just need to go dig a little bit deper. And I have, like, you triggered me when we had our phone conversation towards some other perspective. And I'm gonna be honest and confess it, man. Like I listen to Fox, but I listen to everybody. And until I had my conversation with you, I can say I was drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit, because when you see what's happening socially, and you see the things that we are hearing, and I sit in some very intimate spaces, whether it's GVRS, Squeegee Collab, and all that sort of thing. You get to a point as a citizen to where it's just like, oh, here we go again. Man, so I thank you for who you are. And like I said, never hesitating to lend your voice to this platform. And I pray that we'll be able to get more people to come on and be able to hear this real conversation. Tell people how they can connect with you, LBS, and how they can stay plugged into what you got going on.
So lbsbaltimore.com is the website, LBS Baltimore, all your relevant social media. One thing I'll add is that when we do our legislative advocacy, whether it's City Council in Annapolis, people who sign up to be on our email list, we send out action alerts to reach out to your legislator when we got specific actions. And it's a huge help. Like a part of how I'm able to do what I do is that when I'm walking the halls of Annapolis and people see their inboxes full and they like, Dayvon, what you want? What do you need us to do? So that really helps when people, join our email list, subscribe, to be a sustainer. All that stuff helps us to get the work done. So LBS Baltimore, all the relevant social media.
Yeah, because I get all of the emails and I'm excited about it. I really pay attention to it, whether it's a newly published paper, article, any of those kinds of things. But we got to wrap up. I want to thank my co-host for being with us tonight, Shaka Pitts on the ones and twos, my main man, right hand, left hand, brother. I love you, man. Thank you for being you and doing what you do. The first lady of the Chop Shop, Lady Lisha, Miss Hot Take herself. Thank you for being with us tonight. She said school was in session, and so did the foundation. Miss Chelsea, the Cap woman, said the school was in session. That's normally what happens when Dayvon show up. But Dayvon Love, we thank you. More than anything, we thank our listening audience for being with us tonight. Y'all continue to tune in the weeks to come. We're going to continue to get into these conversations that matter to Baltimore, man, because if you're not going to get integrity in reporting and in conversation or communicating about these things anywhere else, you're going to get integrity on the Chop Shop. As I always say, trust God. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Be the change that you want to see. Don't just say, I got to move. I got to exodus out of Baltimore. I got to leave this community where I've been for years. I want to make sure that I'm making the impact and bringing about the change that my community needs. And above and beyond anything else, always remember that you can be more. Thank you for being with us. See you next week.
I can be more. There's nothing that I can achieve if I just believe. You can be more. You can make every dream a reality. We can be more. Be more, be more.
Yeah.
I can be more.
I wake up every day and try to be more. I pray I be more. It's easy to achieve anything you believe. Like hold your head high. Girl, you got a reason to breathe. I see a rare mind. Boy, you got a reason to dream. Let's take flight. Give the children a reason to see redemption. We grow up in the jacks where it's evil and wicked. Where the people with success don't want to send you a visit. But we still finna make this life worth living. Now throw your hands to the sky if you feel it. Hey, throw your hands to the sky if you the realest. You got a vision. Let's put them pistols away and make sure the OGs keep the community safe. In the world where the ladies crying, the babies dying, I think we can create that space to make a way for the ladies to ride and make baby giants. Be more, believe, let's play. I'm so in love with life.
There's nothing that
Little.
I can achieve if I just believe. You